cut at the first level. Second level is strictly their decision. Now, I've heard some people say, well, how did South Shore get to be in this? And people say, well, we like it. Other people say, well, we don't. South Shore got it at their own request. That is to say that there were a number of letters and what have you received from organizations and individuals in the community asking that South Shore be considered. The RFQ that went in via the University of Chicago process said South, near South Side. That would include South Shore, Woodline, Washington Park. Does not include Hyde Park. Absolutely no space in Hyde Park for such a thing to happen. And the desire was to have the proposal as open as possible to make sure somewhere around here we got it. And, but again, the decision making happens at the level of the President and First Lady. At the point that they decide where they'd like it to be, a community process opens in that area that has to do with content and location and all the things that people are interested in who live in the neighborhood. The other thing I think is important to say is that there are three facets to this: a museum, a library, and an institute. The museum and the library are not run by these institutions that are vying to be associated. They're doing that primarily for the prestige of the association. But all presidential libraries are run by one institution, and that's the National Archives. They run all the libraries and the museums. For all of them, any presidential library is run by the National Archives. Then there is a foundation that does the institute, which is different kinds of things that may happen from the library, programs, initiatives, those kinds of things. So that's how it's broken down. So our big competition right now is the first step to beat out New York. And then I think our next competition is to beat out the West Side. So that then we know that in one of our contiguous communities, hopefully, we get the Presidential Library Museum. You know, we feel strongly that we should, because we're the community that created this whole trajectory to the Obama presidency. You know, he was our senator right in this neighborhood and so forth before he became U.S. Senator. And I just personally strongly believe that if he had gone to New York after college or whatever, he wouldn't be the president now. I think Chicago made this happen. And I'm really pushing for any of our communities. I live in South Shore, so I'm all for that. I work in Washington Park, so I'm all for that. You know, I just want us to have it. And I think there are various times that we can get in this process. But not much that any of us can do at this point, but to try and maybe put some information in the bid that goes in December the 11th. Now there is a website, oplsouthside.org. OPL, of course, stands for Obama Presidential Library. oplsouthside.org. You can put things on it. You can put comments, you can put videos, you can put things on it that express your ideas. Because we think that that's part of our strategy to campaign for the museum, is to have that kind of open process. You know, the president was an organizer. So a strong organizing, strong community connection, I think, is going to be important. You know, I think it's also going to be important that we have some unity around what we want to do. Because nobody wants to come into a situation that's going to be rock controversy before you can get in. You know, so I think this is great to have this forum and to get some early temperature taking from the community about how things should happen. And again, be assured that once they determine where they'd like to see it, a whole another community process opens up. Any questions for me?
I'm just going to give you a presentation real quick so you kind of see. Okay, we're looking at the South Shore Cultural Center as a location for the Obama Library. Some of the things you should know is 64.5 acres. But only need 25 acres for the Obama Library. It would not affect the building or the beach or anything like that. It's across the street from the largest golf course in the city. It was brought by the Park District in 1975. It was given landmark status in 2004. It's the location of Obama wedding reception. It's the location of Wildlife Preserve. The annual economic impact to the city of Chicago will be $220 million, due primarily to increased visitors to the city. It would also create 1,900 permanent jobs, increasing annual local earnings of $56 million. The study estimates that 800,000 visitors will come to the library every year, including 350,000 visitors from the outside of Chicagoland area. The visitors would bring additional spending of $31 million on food and retail to South Shore, enough to support 30 new restaurants and 11 new retail outlets and a hotel. The visitors to the city would spend about $110 million in all. The city would spend. Let me repeat that. The visitors to the city would spend $110 million in all in the city that would not have been spent otherwise. The decision makers, that's the president, Marty Nesbitt, Keith Portman, David Poloff, and Maya Citero. I may be mispronouncing her name. These are the people that are on the advisory committee. As you know, Carol Adams is here. Can you see that? Okay, I'll say their names. Susan Shear, Carol Adams, Tim Black, Byron Brazier, Michelle Collins, Guy Comer, William Macy, David Masina, Sheila Lucen, Terry Peterson, Jim Reynolds, David Vitale, Andrew Zopp. And Carol just went over the timeline for everything just a second ago. All the proposals, comprehensive proposals, are due December the 11th, 2014. Here's some other things to think about. It is already a destination point for bicyclists, tourists from the north, breaking invisible boundaries to the Museum of Science and Industry as an only worthwhile tourist destination on the south side. Anchoring the library at this point provides another jump-off point for future explorations to the south that would lead directly to the city's lakeside development project. Economic development will naturally spread west along major southern arteries, streets, and begin to strengthen the other cultures' lands. Theaster Gates development projects on Stony Island and Dorchester, the ETA, the Regal Theater, and etc. It will promote the theme of Chicago as a unified city and varied cultural treasures, and strike a blow against historical segregationist tendencies. So we could talk about it. Did Carol leave? Anyone have any questions? What do you guys think? Okay, you're going to ask me questions. You're on the advisory board.
I guess I have two questions. One is the U of C. This would be under the guidance of the U of C, but the South Shore area could help determine where the center would be placed, the library.
Now, what do you mean when you said this is under the guidance of the U of C? You mean the proposal?
Yeah, the proposal, because, when you read in the paper, they talk about it's the U of C, between the U of C and U of I. So, how does the U of C fit into
You can look at the presidential libraries, and there's a link on the website that I gave you that shares with you information about all the other presidential libraries. And they usually have an association with the university. Policy professors, political stops. Because when it comes to the running of the library, it will be done, as I said earlier, by the National Archives. If the president and first lady determine they would like to come to South Shore, then they have a committee that comes in to start the process of working with community. And that whole working with absolutely includes looking at sites. Because you see in some of the communities that are on the drawing board, there's residential consideration. At that site, it doesn't appear to be any. But in some communities, they're going to have to negotiate. For example, if they decide we want to go to Washington Park community, then there are residents or people who live there who want to know, hey, does this mean my house? What does this mean? What is this going to mean for me? Are you going to tear down property? What are you going to do? So there is a process that happens after that that involves the community.
So my second question is, when you look at the South Shore Country Club, and you were showing, you said only 25 acres. It looks like it's all built in. So is there land where they're talking about land near the lake? Is that?
It's not outlined, so they can't tell which part of it. Well, not, right now they're not building anything. But, oh yes, it's not about tearing down the cultural center. Of course, the issue would come up about lakefront again. Okay, about taking more of the lakefront, just like the Friends of the Park is right now very actively still engaged in fighting against the Lucas Museum, wanting it to be on the other side of the street. Because our city has an open lakefront ordinance that really some time ago said, anytime anything goes down, don't put anything else up on that lakefront side.
Ms. Adams, my question, I guess I've looked at the proposals both from Columbia and from Chicago, University of Chicago, University of Illinois. And the differences are, and even in the proposal we see today, is the Chicago proposals seem to be entertainment venues, while Columbia's proposal really talked about their outreach to the community and how they would interface to the community, their social justice criteria, and how they would do that. In our case here in Chicago, as I said, we talk about it as an entertainment venue, and if that's what it is, then I'm probably going to vote for Columbia.
I'm sort of confused about the entertainment venue aspect. I didn't really see that
As we talk about it, we talk about how many visitors there would be, and how many tourists there would be, but we don't talk about how the library does anything beyond the something that you walk through. We don't talk about how it does anything beyond.
About how to impact the community, the people who live in the community, through the development of jobs and the whole economic development impact. I think your point is one I would absolutely take to the committee in terms of the actual proposal to make certain that there's more of that and more discussion. And I know that we've been talking a lot about social justice and public policy and those kind of issues and being part of